Hi, I'm Mike, and welcome to our manufacturing facility. I'm part of a team that makes thousands of batteries and other accessories for use around the world. One of the main objectives here is to maintain a commitment to transportation safety and environmental standards and ensure we recycle as much as possible. As an employee, I'm responsible for handling and packaging stationary and motive power industrial lead-acid batteries that are returned for recycling. Stationary batteries are those used in telecommunications, electric utility, and uninterruptible power supply applications, just to name a few. And motive power batteries are used in a broad array of vehicles, such as electric lift trucks, mining equipment, and airport ground support equipment. Over the next few minutes, I'm going to review safe handling procedures and demonstrate the proper ways you can prepare these types of batteries for shipment. Ultimately, I want to make sure we all protect the environment and the public while also protecting ourselves. As the shipper, you're responsible for properly preparing the load of used batteries for transportation. If you do not comply with the U.S. Department of Transportation requirements that I'm going to explain, you must handle used batteries as fully regulated hazardous materials. This means you would have to comply with labeling, marking, placarding, and hazmat shipping paper requirements. A hazmat registration, hazmat driving routes, and a hazmat certified driver would also be required. However, if a shipper follows specific practices, the shipper can actually be exempt from these DOT requirements. Basically, if a shipper properly palletizes and loads the industrial lead-acid batteries and doesn't ship any other hazardous materials at the same time, many of the overwhelming regulations can be avoided. So join me for the next few minutes to review guidelines and learn how to become a responsible shipper. The first key step when handling used industrial lead-acid batteries is to complete an inspection of the batteries to check for damage. During this inspection, there are several factors to keep in mind. Before handling damaged batteries or associated spill material, make sure you wear the appropriate personal protection equipment provided by your employer. Be aware of any damaged or cracked cell or battery. Damaged batteries must be free of electrolyte and, if an appropriate size, placed in a heavyweight, clear polyethylene plastic bag with a minimum of 6 ml that is securely closed. Note that you should handle any acid drained from damaged batteries in accordance with all local, state, and federal laws. Use acid-resistant containers where needed. And be sure to clean up any spilled acid using the appropriate procedures and equipment, such as a spill kit, which can be provided by your employer. Manage cleanup residues according to your employer's instructions. All in all, if you inspect batteries right away and handle used batteries properly, you can help to ensure your own safety, create a safer workplace, and protect the environment. After inspection, you want to prevent any new or additional damage to return batteries. So, when handling used industrial batteries, wear the appropriate personal protection equipment. Handle all return batteries with the same responsible care as new batteries. Keep batteries upright at all times. Except for non-spillable stationary cells, do not tip the batteries over on their side or upside down. Do not drop batteries. Put batteries carefully down on skids or pallets in the designated battery storage area. Remember that only lead-acid batteries may be returned. It is dangerous to mix other battery chemistries with lead batteries during recycling. For example, nickel-cadmium and lithium-ion batteries should never be packaged with lead batteries. Other miscellaneous materials, such as aluminum cans, can cause dangerous conditions at battery recycling facilities and should be avoided. Prevent shorting by protecting terminals with non-conductive caps, tape, or other insulating materials, such as waffle board or cardboard, where needed. Seal all battery openings or make sure all vent caps are in place. Confirm that the total height of the package does not exceed 1.5 times the battery load width. And note that the only industrial batteries that can be stacked more than 1 layer high are stationary monoblock batteries and non-spillable stationary cells. Okay, so we've covered inspections and general handling requirements. The next thing we want to discuss is the packaging process. Packaging is where we actually start to prepare the batteries for shipment. One of the most important things about packaging is the skid or pallet requirements. And just to keep it simple, throughout the rest of this video, we'll use the term pallet to mean either a pallet or a skid. So when packaging any type of industrial battery or cell discussed throughout this video, use only a spec pallet, meeting the following minimum requirements. Maximum skid pallet sizes are 48 inches by 44 inches or 48 inches by 40 inches. A pallet must be sturdy and durable enough to handle the weight of the battery load. Be certain the pallet has no broken or missing boards and no nails sticking up. These could puncture the batteries. If possible, use a pallet provided with the new shipment to return the used industrial batteries. Note that pallet boards should preferably be a minimum of 5/8 of an inch thick. Confirm the pallet is constructed with a minimum of 3 bottom runners. Now, let's talk about how recommended packaging methods differ for different types of industrial batteries. We'll start with the stationary monoblock batteries, which are packaged in the same manner as vehicle starter batteries. Next, we'll talk about stationary non-spillable cells and stationary flooded cells. And then we'll review proper packaging methods for motive power batteries and cells. There will be some repetition across these packaging methods, but this will serve to reinforce the most important procedures. Okay, we're going to show you how you can package stationary monoblock batteries. For the purposes of this demonstration, we're going to use vehicle batteries. But just note that used stationary monoblock batteries should be handled in the exact same way. To get started, place a layer of cardboard on a spec pallet to prevent the batteries from sliding off the pallet. Make this first layer of monoblock batteries as level as possible, but at least place shorter batteries towards the center of the layer, and keep in mind that significantly taller batteries should be reserved for the top layer. Place cardboard on top of the completed pallet. Stack batteries with side terminals so the posts are facing away from each other and not facing towards the outside of the pallet. Remember that terminals on the side must never touch. Position terminals on the top towards the outside of the pallet so the layer above it leans towards the center. Make sure that no batteries are overhanging the waffle board or sheets of cardboard. Place the stud terminal batteries on the top layer. All monoblock batteries must be secured to the pallet with stretch wrap. Stretch wrap works best if it is pulled tight before stretching it around the corners. Start with the stretch wrap turned sideways to create a rope effect. Wrap the top layer at least twice. Still using the rope effect, wrap the top layer at least twice again, crossing over the top each time to form an X pattern. This will pull the batteries towards the center to prevent batteries from falling off the pallet, which is a DOT requirement. Hold the stretch wrap open, wrap around the bottom layer twice, being sure to catch the edges of the pallet. Finally, after placing cardboard on top of the batteries, wrap around the top layer at least twice with the stretch wrap in the open effect and tear at the last corner. After you're done, confirm that the load is stabilized and wrap more times with plastic if necessary. All right, let's talk about non-spillable stationary cells now. But for these types of batteries, place a 1/2 inch plywood sheet on the top of the spec pallet. Place your first layer of cells on top of the plywood and on their side. This helps to avoid the possibility of falling over during shipment. Place one layer of 5/8 of an inch tri-wall cardboard or waffle board on the top of the first layer of the cells. Place the next layer using the same guidelines. Continue building layers, making sure that you do not exceed maximum pallet weight. Place tri-wall or waffle board around all sides of the cells. Next, secure the cells by nailing wooden cleats to the skid on all sides so the tri-wall cardboard and waffle board siding is held tightly against the cells and will remain vertical. Install cardboard corner supports to make it easier to manage before banding. Use packaging tape to secure the cardboard if necessary. Install metal or plastic banding horizontally around each layer of cells. Before pulling tight, place wooden strips under the banding as shown to provide support for the cardboard. Note, the wooden strips can be held in place with packaging tape to make it easier to manage before tightening the banding. Once each layer has one horizontal band securing them, place 1/2 inch plywood on the top layer and secure the 2 bands vertically that run from the front to the back of the skid. Drill holes through the cleating or skid boards as close to the cells as possible and run banding through the holes and around batteries to secure. After you've completed banding, place a tracking tag on the top of the pallet to complete preparation for shipping. Next, let's review how to package flooded stationary cells. Place flooded stationary cells upright and secure with wooden cleats on a spec pallet. Band cells with steel or adequate plastic banding. A minimum of 3 horizontal bands and 2 vertical bands are required. Place adequate reinforcement, such as plywood, on the top and sides of the cells to prevent shorting, cutting, or distortion. Make sure metal banding does not come in contact with the post or terminals of the cells. Finally, be sure not to run banding around the outside of the skid boards to avoid the possibility of boards collapsing during shipment. Now we want to review the packaging process for used motive batteries. Starting with the spec pallet, place all batteries upright and across the runners of the pallet if possible. Check batteries and make sure they are free from leaks. Band multiple batteries together to consolidate a shipment to a standard pallet size. Firmly nail adequate wooden cleats to the pallet on all sides around the base of the battery load perimeter. This will prevent the batteries from sliding off the pallet during transport. Band batteries with steel or plastic banding and adequate insulation. Just note that metal banding cannot come in contact with the post or terminals of the batteries. Place banding in the same direction as the runners of the pallet. The banding also should pass through the pallet as close as possible to the base of the battery to keep the load from moving during transport. And before moving on, remember to not pass banding around the outside edge of the pallet. Avoiding the outside edge prevents pallet failure during transport. Motive cells, both single and multiple, can be handled a couple of different ways. Let's first review the options for packaging multiple motive cells for shipment. To use the first method, which is the primary support bracing method, place motive cells upright and secure with wooden cleats on a spec pallet. Place adequate reinforcement, for example plywood, on the top and sides of the cells to prevent shorting, cutting, or distortion. Band cells with steel or plastic banding using a minimum of 3 horizontal bands and 2 vertical bands. Remember that metal banding cannot come in contact with the post or terminals of the batteries. There is also an alternative method to handling multiple motive cells. The main difference here is the use of gusset bracing. Let's take a look. Place the cells upright and secure with wooden cleats and gusset bracing on a spec pallet. Band the cells with steel or plastic banding using a minimum of 3 horizontal bands and 2 vertical bands. Protect terminals with non-conductive caps, tape, or other insulating material, for example waffle board or cardboard, to prevent shorting. Use stretch wrap for extra support. Next, let's review how to handle single motive cells. Note that this type of battery can also be handled a couple of different ways. The first method involves the following. Place cells upright and secure with the wooden cleats on a spec pallet. The height of the battery load should not exceed 1.5 times the width of the battery load. Place adequate reinforcements, for example plywood, on the top and sides of the cells to prevent shorting, cutting, or distortion. Band cells with steel or plastic banding using a minimum of 3 horizontal bands and 2 vertical bands. Again, note that metal banding cannot come in contact with the post or terminals of the batteries. As an alternative, you can also do the following. Place cells upright on a spec pallet and secure with gusset support bracing on all 4 sides. Protect terminals with non-conductive caps, tape, or other insulating material, such as waffle board or cardboard, to prevent shorting. Band cells with steel or plastic banding with 2 vertical bands across the top. Once again, metal banding must not come in contact with the post or terminals of the cells. Now that your used industrial batteries are packaged securely on pallets, the pallets must be properly loaded and secured in the transport trailer. A combination of smart packaging and loading is the best way to avoid acid spills and other battery incidents of concern during transportation. When loading lead-acid batteries into a transport vehicle, there are a few requirements to remember. The wrapped pallets of batteries must be properly blocked or loaded in the transport vehicle so as to prevent damage and short circuits in transit. You must prevent lateral, forward, and aft movements of batteries breaking free from the pallets or tipping over. Note that no other hazardous materials may be transported in the same vehicle. Any other materials loaded in the same vehicle must be secured to prevent contact with or damage to the batteries. When loading a transport vehicle and transporting batteries, all of these steps are equally important. They help to maintain your own safety, highway safety, and the environment. Thanks for spending some time with me and reviewing how to handle industrial batteries for recycling and shipment. Your company wants to assure that used batteries are packaged and shipped safely for recycling. So be a responsible employee by following the guidelines in this video. The video and associated instruction sheets are available at www.batterycouncil.org. BCI recommends that all company employees who package used batteries for transport review these materials and learn these techniques. Please share the video and instruction sheets with any customers who ship used batteries. Thank you for your time today, and please ask your employer if you have any questions about this presentation.